March on Roanoke is organized by Roanoke Indivisible to register voters, to energize voters, to inspire voters, to remind voters that this republic belongs to all of us in equal measure, and that our democracy only works when we all take part in our civic life and have a meaningful seat at the table. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but just sometimes, it's easy to get discouraged when contemplating the policies or the tweet storms coming out of Washington, or the bruising attacks that pass for civil discourse on our airwaves and social media feeds. The women marches here in Roanoke and nationally were born as a cry of rage and fear as we watched attack after attack on the gains women had struggled for years, for centuries to achieve. The right to vote, won in this country for white women 100 years ago. The right to participate in public life, to offer ideas, to be heard, to run for office, to govern, to lead. The right to earn our own money and to our own independence, to our own jobs. The sovereign right to control our own freaking bodies, to birth control, to our own sexual and emotional lives, to affirm that when we say no, we mean hell no. Well, I can say that I am still enraged sometimes when I think about it and about everything that has happened in these past 4 years, but I am no longer afraid. And I am not afraid because we have built this. Us all together, coming together to march, to create new civic organizations, to launch new women leaders, to elect the largest cohort of women to power in Richmond and Washington since 1992. Absolutely. And while the rest of the country watches, Virginia is leading the way. As you see Virginia become the progressive leader in the South, as Virginia protects LGBTQ youth from so-called conversion therapy, as it rolls back the unnecessary and egregious barriers to a safe and legal abortion, as it moves forward with criminal justice reform, with marijuana decriminalization, with common sense gun laws that will make us all safer, to make voting easier instead of harder, as it became the last state needed to ratify, finally, the Equal Rights Amendment into our Constitution. As you see all of that, thank your delegate and thank your state senator. Absolutely, they are doing the work. But you have someone else to thank. You know who did the really hard work? The work every single night for years, knocking doors, making calls, raising money, the anonymous work, the thankless work, that volunteer work, the work that really mattered in electing these great representatives. Women did. Women absolutely did that work. You did that work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, even when the national picture seems bleak, here in Virginia, we are living in the inaugural race of a fierce feminist future. And that is your legacy for us, your legacy for all our daughters and sons, for our republic. And we are taking this energy forward. We are just getting started. And this train cannot be stopped, and its next station is November 3rd, 2020. So please join me as we hear from 5 incredible women who have been instrumental in building that fierce feminist future here in Roanoke and Southwest Virginia. They prove to us that the energy and the future is in the grassroots, and it is here, and it is fierce, and it is fearless, and it is feminist, and it cannot be stopped. So please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Celeste Delgado Librero, who will be speaking about sustainable Roanoke.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Me llamo María Celeste Delgado Librero y soy una mujer, soy una inmigrante, soy una feminista y soy una activista, and frankly, I am fed up. I am up here talking to you as a woman who just volunteered for the best candidate we had running this time around, Elizabeth Warren. Thank you, Katie Dralu, for leading us. So now you understand why I am fed up. I am also up here talking to you as an immigrant, as proof, unnecessary proof, that people who are born in different countries are not threats to this country. That if we are treated with respect and get the same opportunities as everybody else, we can be assets to any country. And I am also up here talking to you as the founder of Sustainable Roanoke. You may have seen our recycling station on the other side of the park as the crow flies. We have these events monthly, and we accept recyclable items that are not accepted by the Roanoke Recycling and Disposal Solutions company that does the recycling in Roanoke. They don't take them not because they're not recyclable, but because they don't make money off of them. So what happens to all those recyclables? They get trashed, they get sent to the landfill, or they get incinerated, and they contribute to pollution, environmental degradation, and yes, global warming. Have you heard of global warming? The first time I heard about it was 32 years ago, and I was still living in Spain. For the next 31 years, I was paralyzed by the immensity of the threat of the problem. And so I basically just recycled and I tweaked my habits, but I didn't really speak up because I was afraid that I was going to be taken for a fool or that I was going to be ignored. And then last year, I decided that I needed to do something about it. So in May of 2019, I created a group that I called Sustainable Roanoke on Facebook. But I still thought that I was going to be taken for a fool, or worse, going to be publicly ignored on Facebook. So I did not invite any of my friends for 2 days. I just waited. And then I started inviting people. And today, let me give you some numbers. We have, as of today, 724 members and a core of about 20 very active volunteers, 95% of whom are, if you're wondering, women. We have organized 7 recycling events like the one that we're holding here today since November 2019, and we plan to have them monthly, and they have been wildly successful. We have located companies all over the United States that recycle the items that we collect, and we ship them there with money that we collect from donations. If you have any money to spare, we are right behind the library. They will be put to very good use. We just pay for shipping and some flyers and things like that. We have organized 2 visits to the RDS plant, the Recycling and Disposal Solutions plant, because we believe that we need to know what happens to our trash, especially because we pay for their service. We hope to organize more in the future, but we were told that they were going to cut down on those. We'll see about that. We are planning frequent small-scale trash cleanups in different parts of the city and the county, and we hope to inspire others to start doing the same things in their neighborhoods, not as a big-time, once-a-year event, but as something that we do all the time, because it will make a huge difference. Last year, together with other organizations, and one of them is up there, Sunrise. Hello, Sonia Taylor. Sunrise. We put together a climate rally, and this year we are organizing an Earth Day rally on April 24th to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And you are all invited. I hope you come. We will have a recycling event as well. It's on a Friday. Finally, we are also planning a Q&A of some sort with the candidates who are running for city council and for mayor this year. This last bit is very important because, as you can imagine, the environment cannot be saved by a bunch of volunteers, no matter how fierce and feminist and fabulous we are. Yep. Our political leaders need to put the environment at the top of their agendas now and make sure that we have a sustainable city for future generations. Yes. And they are not going to do it unless we demand it. But our volunteers and our leaders are not the only ones who have a role and a responsibility in this. We all do. You all do as well. And I'm not just talking about recycling all you can, which is great, but recycling is not the solution. I'm talking about many different things that you can do right now to minimize your impact on the environment. And you probably know many of them, but I have to say them, just a few. For example, buying locally and bringing your own reusable bags to the store, driving less, carpooling, taking public transportation, not letting your car idle as you pick up your child from school, not going through a drive-through, composting, eating less meat and dairy. Yes, that has an impact. Reducing the amount of stuff you buy. Do you really need more stuff, or do you have enough with what you have already? There are so many things that you can do, but the most important one of all is speaking up, what I did not do for 31 years. Educating others and putting pressure on our political and industry leaders is the best thing you can do. If you do any of those things, you are an activist. And if you feel overwhelmed and need help getting started, please come by our tables or on your way out, and we'll be very glad to help. If you live in the area, Sustainable Roanoke is on Facebook. Please join us. And if you don't live in the area, please join us and learn how you can start your own sustainable Galax or sustainable Buena Vista. Anything that you do will be better than doing nothing at all. And before I say gracias, I need to remind you you have made beautiful signs. Don't trash them. Just take them back home and use them again. Gracias.
Thank you, Celeste. And now we're going to hear from Emily Satterwhite, an Appalachian scholar and climate activist.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you all so much for being here. Hello, Roanoke! It's so good to be here today in the presence of you. You are our fierce feminist future. My name is Emily Satterwhite, and I live in Blacksburg, where I teach Appalachian Studies. 2 years ago, my life changed immeasurably. Before then, I did my job, raised my daughter, and ignored Virginia politics. But then construction began on the Mountain Valley Fracked Gas Pipeline, and I was one of the people who dropped everything to support the tree sitters blocking their path. I could not stand by and watch the expansion of fossil fuels when the world is burning. I could not stomach that Roanoke Gas Company is eager to profit from a pipeline that, if completed, will be responsible for doubling or possibly almost tripling the greenhouse gases from fixed sources in Virginia. No, ma'am. Not when the people who suffer most from climate change are the most vulnerable people on the planet. So 2 years ago, as I watched my new pipeline fighter friends getting arrested to protect us all, I felt called to step up. One night that summer, I told my husband that I wanted to put myself in the way to stop MVP. And he was supportive under one condition. He said, no trees. They're too dangerous. Now I said, okay, no trees. And I proceeded to climb about 20 feet up a construction excavator and lock myself to the hydraulics for 14 hours until I was cut out and arrested. I've never been at peace the way I was that day. I have a question for you, Roanoke. Did you know that right now, 30 minutes from here, there are 2 people living in trees to block the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline? 30 minutes from here. Appalachian Pipeline have been blocking construction for a year and a half to protect your water, Roanoke. Not just because your water is an environmental issue, but because your water is a social justice issue. Sedimentation from MVP affects the drinking water for 300,000 Roanoke area residents who rely on Spring Hollow Reservoir, and thousands more rural residents who rely on private wells. What's more, if Mountain Valley Pipeline goes into service, permanent increases in sedimentation will cost the city of Roanoke at least $36 million a year. That's $36 million a year from a city where 36% of residents are people of color and 18% live below the poverty line. Do we want to subsidize the profits of corporations on the backs of our neighbors? No, ma'am, we do not. Did you know also that we are winning the pipeline fight? Raise your hand if you knew that. Some of you know that. MVP is currently under a federal stop work order to protect endangered species, including your Roanoke log perch. We can win this, but we need Roanoke to fight with us. What will you do? Will you visit the tree sits to show your support? The next time you hear on the news about someone like me engaged in civil disobedience, will you show up to bear witness? Will you go to court to support people being prosecuted by our own public servants for protecting our planet? Will you strike for climate April 22nd through 24th? Will you show up in Richmond on April 25th to say, we need a special session on climate. We want the Green New Deal now. Will you withdraw your consent from business as usual? The system is fixed. We have to break it. Before you leave here today, I hope you'll begin formulating your next Fierce Feminist plan. If you are someone whose dignity and safety are relatively secure, I hope you will contemplate whether you are called to support or engage in civil disobedience in these dark times. I hope you will draw upon your fierce feminist courage to confront power, not only when it threatens your family, but also when it threatens people you've never met. I want to close with wise words about being hopeful from one of our very own Southwest Virginia sheroes, Barbara Kingsolver. The pessimist would say, it's going to be a terrible winter, we're all going to die. The optimist would say, oh, it'll be all right, I don't think it'll be that bad. The hopeful person would say, maybe someone will be alive in February, so I'm going to put some potatoes in the root cellar, just in case. Hope is a mode of survival. Hope is a mode of resistance. If you look at hope that way, it's not a state of mind, but something we actually do with our hearts and our hands. Thanks so much to all of you who hope with your hearts and with your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for that inspiring reminder. And now we're going to hear from Dolly Davis from Ladies and Gents of the Blue Ridge.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to have a voice. I'm a transgender woman, and I help support transgender people in the Roanoke Valley, in Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia. I do it as a necessity because there's so much need Discrimination, it happens all the time. We need a voice and we want a voice. And thank you for helping give us a voice. I may look like anybody else at first. I have a family, 2 beautiful daughters in high school here in Roanoke Valley. I've got a business I run by myself to make ends meet, but I'm also transgender. And unfortunately, that being transgender can turn everything upside down through discrimination. It can turn things upside down because people don't support you, believe you. It can turn things upside down because people want to other you and tell you that you're less than. And that's not the case. We are equal. We are not just part of the LGBT community. We are part of the greater community. And we matter. We want equality. We want gender equality. And we're here to say we won't stand for anything less. As you know, I don't need to tell anybody how difficult it can be if you're discriminated by most of the systems and the power. Our community leads in discrimination in terms of healthcare, education, homelessness, and suicide rate. That's not because we're any different than you and any different than everybody out there. It's because we're different because people say we're different. Everybody's different, but we're all human. And if we can get that message across and say we want our rights, we want to stand up for gender equality, we want to stand up for who we are so we can express ourselves. I can express my femininity without it being questioned by everybody else. Now, the community here has pulled together in such a wonderful way that people have come and visited us and asked how we have reached our success. We have started a transgender support group, Ladies and Gents of the Blue Ridge Transgender Alliance, 15 years ago. And this group has now over 600 members across 3 states. We provide resources. We provide hope. We lobby government. We support each other. We do everything we can to make people's lives better. We educate not only transgender people, but families, educators, to let them know that we're really no different from anybody else. Transgender people come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And the one thing we all have in common is we're told that our gender is less than others. I consider myself a feminist. I consider myself somebody who cares about other people and who cares about the future. We help support the Diversity Camp. The Diversity Camp is a wonderful organization that helps LGBTQ youth identify and feel like they're safe in a space around other people like themselves. People come from hundreds of miles away. People have graciously donated tens of thousands of dollars to help scholarships for these kids that need this experience, to let them know that people matter and they matter. We're not done yet. We're going to keep going, but our message is clear. Everybody should be respected. All genders, all sexualities. It's not about dividing, it's about coming together, believing in yourself, looking at your neighbors, getting energized, and making a difference and a change. When I transitioned, I didn't know what the road held for me ahead. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I'm proud to say the people that are transitioning now have a little bit more support and certainty. I can tell you I'm much happier on the inside. And now, one day at a time, one person at a time, we're trying to make a change and let everybody else around us understand who we are and make lives better for us and everybody else around us. My message and my story is clear. Ladies and gents of the Blue Ridge, the Diversity Camp, the LGBT community. We've been coming together for quite a while. We've been amplifying our voices together for equality. We all love, we are all worth loving. We want change. Love is the strongest thing in the universe. And let's hope that we can make that change for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dolly. Now we will hear from Kirsten Mitchell, co-founder of It Happens Here.
Hello and welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming. I just wanted to start this out with a little bit of a warning. Some of the things I'll be touching on when I'm speaking are sexual assault and sexual violence of certain sorts. So just wanted to let you know that up front. As she said, my name is Kirsten Mitchell. I'm a 23-year-old college student at Virginia Tech, and a few years ago, some friends and I started an organization called It Happens Here. It Happens Here is an organization that raises awareness about the reality of sex trafficking happening here in America, even Virginia, and even here in the New River Valley. We do this through social media awareness, face-to-face conversations, and by hosting fundraisers throughout the year that raise funds for a safe home called Street Ransom, which houses girls under the age of 18 who have been rescued from human trafficking and are able to have a space to heal, to be loved, and to just find themselves. This safe home is located right here in Roanoke, Virginia. Since starting this organization in 2017, our small leadership team has raised thousands of dollars. We're just a couple of college students who meet in one of the buildings on Virginia Tech's campus, but we have decided that we're going to take our time out of our busy college schedules to make an impact in our area and for the women whose voices have been taken away from them. I was led to this type of work when at the age of 18, I packed my suitcase and much to my parents' reservation, moved to Mexico City for a few months and worked with other passionate people to stop human trafficking. I lived about one metro stop away from one of the biggest red light districts in the world and worked with some of the most wonderful little girls who have experienced more abuse, more pain, and more heartbreak than any of us could ever imagine. However, it would be a waste of an opportunity to stand up here and speak solely of the things that I have done. In a time where the horrendous acts of people like Jeffrey Epstein are being overshadowed by memes, and in a time where most people's only understanding of anti-human trafficking efforts is the word Ashton Kutcher, I am more passionate than ever about the fact that we, who are given a place of privilege and a voice, are to use it for those who have had theirs taken away and who are told that they are not important, that their value is only a dollar sign, and that their bodies are something that can be sold against their will. The reality is that over 40 million people across our world are currently being trafficked, and about 80% of those is sexual trafficking, and 90% of those are women. So these numbers, while are a great tool to be able to understand the tragedy that human trafficking is, it's hard to put it into perspective that these are real lives, real humans, real souls, and real stories. So I have a couple of stories of things that I've witnessed that I would like to share with you today. One of the places that I worked in Mexico City was a red light district called Buena Vista. A lot of these women were trans women of color whose only opportunity for survival was sexual slavery. A lot of the problems that they were having was that there was a lot of violence against this specific group of women. And while I was there, a woman that I had become friends with was stabbed and murdered in the streets, and the people that killed her filmed their video and uploaded it online. And as me and my friends sat there looking at the computer and watching this video and watching this woman's murderer laugh as she bled out in the streets, we realized that this is something that has to be stopped. This is something that can no longer be kept in the dark, because that's why it's growing and that's why it's continuing to happen, because people are afraid to speak up and to lay down their right to be silent on the matter. Another story I have is one of the places I worked when I was in Mexico City was a safe home for young girls. We would go, we would dance with them, we would cook food with them, we would help them do their schoolwork, and just try to help them live lives of children. And a lot of times you would go in and we would leave and it would be like, oh, this was a great day. And then one of the days, there was a girl who went into her room, was crying, and my roommate went in there to console her. When she came out, I asked what happened, and the girl was crying because the next day she had to go and face her pimp, the man who had stolen her from her family, and she had to go and testify in court the next day to see him. This broke my heart because all I could do and sit there was hold her and pray. And sometimes that's all you can do. But I decided after that day, when I came back to America, that I wasn't going to allow myself to stay silent on the matter, that I was going to speak up for this girl who lives in another country. And so, while all these stories may seem upsetting and may seem depressing, and while a lot of times this issue can seem too big to handle and like there's no hope in the matter, the hope is awareness. The hope is each and every single one of you going out into your everyday lives and having these conversations. Because the way that this is ended and the way that change is enacted is through conversations, is through awareness, is through speaking up. The trajectory of my entire life, the way that I see my career laying out, is forever changed because someone came and told me about the reality of sex trafficking happening in the world, and I decided that I wasn't going to stay silent. A fierce feminist future is one where privileged women lay down their rights to silence to speak up for those who cannot. So I thank you guys so much for coming, and if you have any questions, please come and talk to me.
Thank you, Kirsten. And now we're going to hear from Monique Ingram, a human sexuality educator and representing Planned Parenthood.
All right. Hello, 2020 Women's March. What's up? Before I get started with my spiel, I want to thank Yvonne, I want to thank Sarah Sprague, all of the organizers of the Women's March, because I know this takes a lot of work to put together, so thank you. Yes, let's give them a hand. And also I want to thank all of the beautiful women that I'm on this panel with today. Thank you so much for coming and representing your respective organizations and what you stand for every day, so thank you. So I too want to say happy eve of International Women's Day, family. Exciting. Now, because we're family, I can tell you the truth. When Sarah came to me and asked me to speak today, I was terrified. And any of you that know me probably think this is ridiculous because you know that I talk to youth and professionals and collegians and parents every single day about penises and vaginas. But this is different. And so 2020, I have decided that I am embracing difference. I am saying yes to difference. I am welcoming difference. I am going to be voting for difference in November. But difference, diversity, individual expression, and our identities are what make us beautiful. I stand before you today with a multitude of identities. I'm Black, cis female, Christian, a professional, straight, progressive, college educated, neurotypical, and able-bodied for now. And some of these identities carry privilege, and I work every day to make sure that I use and acknowledge that privilege for good and not evil. But there are two in particular that give me the strength to stand here steeped in pride upon the shoulders of my ancestors, my mama, my aunties, my godmom, my sisters, and my mentors. And that is my identity as a Black woman. I'm here to remind you of a few things and challenge you to do better on others, because trusting and believing Black women and girls is essential to being an ally to Black people. Believe Black women are savvy, capable, intelligent enough to vote for candidates that will uplift our children and our communities. But if you show your behind, we will show you the door at the ballot box. Believe that Black women don't need your 2 cents when it comes to making informed choices regarding our reproductive futures, especially if you don't respect, love, and have once had a uterus. Believe in our cries and our pains of anguish, because Black maternal mortality rates aren't 243% higher than those of white women, because we don't value our health. believe that 53% of Black trans women, non-binary, and gender-expansive individuals report being sexually assaulted and survivors of gender violence, but still lack social resources in their times of need. Believe Black women when we school you about how historically we have always been in the struggle, fighting for equity, equality, and dismantling patriarchy. Even if we didn't reap the benefits, and even when the feminist movement didn't speak to our struggles. Believe Black women when we say that doing something and doing the right thing is not the same thing. Believe me when I say that you have no clue what an intersectional feminist or a womanist is if you don't know a Kimberly Crenshaw or a Bell Hooks. Believe Black, Indigenous, Asian, and Pacific Island women and Latinas when we vote as 24% of the electorate but are only 7% of elected officials. And believe this, Black woman, when I say that I don't speak for all Black folk, I don't speak for all trans women of color, I don't speak for all Latinas, I don't speak for all queer and stud folk, but when I make intelligible rebukes and legitimate and loving critiques of a country I love and a movement I respect, it is not divisive, it is not anti-feminist, it is not anti-American, it is hopeful. Because I am hoping that when you know better, you do better. And if family can't tell you when you need to tighten up, who can? So my siblings, I ask you to stand with us because we have stood with you since the beginning, whether we were free or in chains, when we didn't have the vote, when we didn't have a choice. Stand with us even when we don't know, even when we're not there, even when it threatens your piece of the American dream, because my liberation is tied to your liberation. Ask us what allyship looks like and don't assume. When we are free, you are free. So I want to end with saying, don't be anti-Black, and let's stand in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. What did I tell you? Isn't that the most amazing group of women? Let's give them all another rousing round of applause. These women are the architects of our fierce feminist future here in Roanoke and Southwest Virginia. Absolutely fierce and fearless and feminist, and they cannot be stopped. So yes, we had absolutely no idea how hard the last 4 years would be. We had no idea that it would be our great burden and our great privilege to live in these crucial times, times when every single choice we make matters. But the truth is, we are lucky. We are lucky to live in these times and to be able to take the reins of history and safeguard a better world for our future, that fierce feminist future. None before us and none after will live in this window of opportunity where we still have a chance to fight for the future our children deserve. A world with a livable climate. A world where our great democracy survives and becomes stronger. A world where we will never stop taking a stand for the dignity and equality of everyone, no matter their sex or gender, their race or religion, their birthplace or birth condition. These have been 4 hard years, we all know it, but it turns out we were more than capable. We are inspired, we are on fire, and we are still learning everything we can do when we organize. Look around, everyone here, because we are the badass women who were made for these times and who got it done. So now it's our time. I'm going to ask the organizers of the Women's March to join us up here on stage, and they're going to help lead us in the call to march. I also saw a couple people with drums, and if you are one of those people, come on up. We need your drums. I saw a couple people on stilts, and if you are some of those people, come on up. You're going to help us lead the call to march. We are going to march for our rights as equal citizens, to march for climate justice, to march for our democracy, and to march for our future. And marching for our future also means respecting the past and the great debts we owe those who have come before us and who have been the vanguard of so many of these struggles for social justice. So after our march, we want to make sure you know that the Roanoke chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference is holding a memorial service to remember the Selma to Montgomery March at the MLK Memorial Statue just a block from here. So after our march for the Fierce Feminist Future, why don't you head over there and catch the end of that important event to remember those leaders in whose great footsteps it is our privilege to follow. Because sisters and friends, we have work to do, and this is our time. So organizers, drummers, stilt walkers, chant leaders, everybody please come on up and we're gonna get ready to march. All right, and so if you have one of your programs, you will also notice that the route for the march is listed on the program. This is the time to make sure you have your signs. Here come our drummers. Woo! All right. Drummers, feel free.